Okay, so this is Tuesday, June the 9th, 2020. And which means it's kind of at the basically training phase for the flock of Canada geese that habitat the West End of Vancouver. I figure there's probably about 60 to 70 adults, mostly pairs, that spend all their time here. And there's a whole bunch of other flocks that come and go, but for the most part there's a resident flock. And they had their babies about 3 weeks ago. And the average Canada Goose pair, who they mate for life, unless of course one of the pair is killed, and more often than not they'll find another partner. They're very amazing. They're extremely social creatures, and one of the really cool things about them is they share duties raising the young. What you'll see is the flock itself, the 30 families effectively, and 2 or 3, maybe at most like 4 of the adult geese will be taking care of the goslings. It's like daycare, geese daycare, and it's instinctive. So daycare is not a human creation. Big flash. Anyway, other animals do this. Cats and not cats. Actually, cats. Even domesticated cats do it, but lions, tigers, and stuff will do it as well. But also, most plants do it. Of course, plants don't have legs; they can't move. The only way they can move is, pollinating and getting their seeds carried off in the wind or in the stomach of an animal or something like that. And since they predate, land-based animals, they have long ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, developed the DNA for socializing and sharing responsibilities. Really awesome example is trees. There's the mother tree, and around the mother tree will be her, progeny. And in that local area, the mother tree, via the roots, is constantly communicating with the children. It's an amazing thing. There's this incredible book called The Secret Life of Trees. If you haven't read it, Google it, buy it, read it. It'll blow your mind. But they also will communicate, and what the trees communicate is incredibly complex information, telling other trees if there's a bug infestation, that the tree has the capability of attacking, and they do it through chemical warfare, through their sap. And if a particular bug arrives, one tree will sense it, and it'll communicate that information to its progeny, saying, start making this sap because we got bug number 497B-2 invading. But it gets even more amazing than that. The trees can also communicate outside of their families, and they do. And something that's outside of the root structure of both the progeny as well as the mother tree, there's of course a gap. There might be a tree 10 kilometers away of the same species, or even close. Pines talk to pines, deciduous talk to deciduous. It's quite amazing. But anyway, how they communicate is even more amazing. It's through something called the mycelium layer, and this is the fungal layer that lives in underneath the forest. You go down 3 or 4 feet, and in that layer is this amazing, literally a universe of fungi called the mycelium layer. And it's, in terms of its DNA, and I shit you not, it's actually closer to invertebrate animals like us than it is to plants. It's kind of like this third um, type of life on Earth, which has resolved the question for me in terms of why is it that humans are binary creatures. I have two hands, I've got two eyes, I've got two nostrils, I got one mouth. Well, I could use my butt, of course, to fart and make sound. So in fact, I have two ways of making noise. Of course, I could sneeze. But anyways, I totally digress. We venerate the number 3. It's like us humans are divided into the body, the mind, and the soul. Freud talked about the id, the ego, and the superego. In monotheistic theology, like in particular Christianity, there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. 3, 3, 3. And for like 60 years of my life, I scratched, well, maybe not 60 years, maybe I probably was in my teens when I started to ask this question. Why 3? We're binary creatures. What is it, 3? So for a long time, my explanation was, well, at some point before or after we split from an asexual creature like a bacteria into something that has basically splits their DNA, and this is a fairly complex invertebrate animal, probably only like 300 million years old. My theory was that at the initial split was 3, and over time that third just didn't quite make it, and we wound up with two. But in realizing that there's animals, plants, and fungi, there's the 3. So anyway, this fungi is like nature's internet on steroids. It can communicate so much more information. It doesn't operate at 5G speeds, but it does operate quickly enough to serve its purpose. And you'll have a forest of pine trees communicate through the mycelium layer with another forest of pine trees saying, hey, bug number 479 has appeared. You guys better start building sap. So the fact that nature itself has the mycelium layer domesticated the trees, or have trees domesticated the mycelium layer? And from a chronology perspective, the mycelium layer was there before pine trees. It's much more primitive, but from a almost spiritual perspective, this thing has existed for I would guess probably 400, maybe 450 million years. Whereas, complex, like us human beings as Homo sapiens, we've only existed for like 300,000 years. That's 0.3 of a million years. So 450 versus 450, mycelium layer, humans, 0.3. I kid you not. So the idea of, so that's cool, but getting back to the original point of this video is this idea of what's called a creche. C-R-E-C-H-E, I think is how it's spelled. And that's that's what humans define as a way that they recognize animal species share, they share social duties when it comes to raising their offspring. And we understand that plants do. So I guess my bottom line is this idea that love is a human intellectual construct. It's complete bullshit. It's obvious that social structures have developed 450 million years back that, well, let's say pine trees, hundreds of millions of years back, that share their young, or share the responsibilities to raise their young during the actual breeding season, because this is, of course, when they're most vulnerable. Humans are vulnerable because of the way our brains are. We're vulnerable as babies for 3 or 4 years. It takes forever for that little spot on the top to solidify into skull tissue. Pretty amazing humans. But anyways, I guess this is a really stupid, convoluted, long-winded way of saying socialism is genetic. It's not just a construct of political philosophers of the past 200 or 300 years. So, if you want to get with nature, get with socialism. Peace out.